The buffalo doesn't move, not even when a bird disappears into its ear. For a few seconds, the tiny bird vanishes completely, buried inside the folds of flesh where no predator, no horn, and no swishing tail could ever reach. The giant simply keeps grazing, as if nothing unusual is happening. It looks impossible. Why would one of Africa's most powerful animals tolerate such an invasion? And why would a bird barely larger than a sparrow risk climbing onto an animal capable of crushing it with a single careless step? The answer isn't just about food. It's about one of the strangest partnerships evolution has ever produced. A partnership so unusual that, even today, scientists still debate whether this bird is a trusted ally or a clever opportunist. As dawn breaks across the African savanna, the landscape slowly comes alive. Golden light spills over endless grasslands. Herds of buffalo emerge from the morning mist, their heavy footsteps sending clouds of dust into the cool air. Nearby, zebras gather in loose families, while giraffes stretch toward the highest branches. Farther away, a lone rhinoceros wanders through the fading shadows, almost prehistoric against the rising sun. To us, these animals dominate the landscape. They are the giants of Africa. But to one small bird, they are something entirely different. They are home. Long before the heat of the day settles over the plains, oxpeckers are already searching the horizon. They don't look for trees rich with fruit or rivers filled with fish. They search for movement, a walking buffalo, a grazing giraffe, a resting rhino. Every giant is a living island, carrying food wherever it goes. The moment an oxpecker spots a suitable host, it wastes no time. With quick, shallow wing beats, it glides through the morning air and lands with remarkable precision. Its feet grip coarse hair as naturally as a woodpecker grips bark. Within seconds, it begins to walk across the animal's body with quiet confidence, as though every step has been practiced 1,000 times before. And perhaps it has, because this relationship didn't appear overnight. It has been shaped by millions of years of evolution, each generation refining a partnership that is both remarkably efficient and surprisingly complicated. At first glance, the bird seems to be doing the giant a favor. It searches through the animal's coat, picking off ticks and biting insects one after another. A free meal for the bird, a cleaner body for the buffalo. Simple. At least, that's what scientists once believed. But the closer they looked, the stranger the story became. Because some days, the oxpecker isn't looking for parasites at all, and that single discovery would force researchers to rethink everything they thought they knew about one of Africa's most familiar birds. For the oxpecker, a buffalo is not simply an animal. It is a moving landscape, a mountain of muscle and bone covered in valleys of coarse hair, warm folds of skin, and hidden corners where countless tiny creatures struggle to survive unnoticed. Every step the buffalo takes carries an entire ecosystem with it, and the oxpecker has learned exactly where to look. Instead of wandering aimlessly across its host, the bird follows an almost deliberate route. It begins along the shoulders, where thick hair often conceals clusters of ticks. Then it works its way toward the neck, pausing every few seconds to inspect the skin with remarkable precision. Nothing escapes its attention. A slight twitch beneath the fur, the glint of a hard shell, the tiny movement of an insect trying to disappear. One quick jab, and the parasite is gone. The bird rarely wastes energy. Every movement is calculated. Every landing has a purpose. Yet the richest feeding grounds are often hidden far from sight. The oxpecker climbs higher, balancing effortlessly as the buffalo lowers its head to graze. It reaches the base of the horns, where skin folds create warm shelters for parasites. Then, without hesitation, it approaches one of the most sensitive places on the animal's body, its ear. The bird pauses for only a heartbeat before pushing its bill deep inside. Then its entire head disappears. To us, the moment feels almost uncomfortable. Surely the buffalo will react now. A shake of the head, a sudden snort. Anything. Instead, nothing. The giant continues tearing grass from the ground as though the bird isn't there at all. That tolerance is no accident. Unlike its shoulders or flanks, the inside of the ear is almost impossible for a buffalo to groom. Hooves cannot reach it. Horns are useless. Even the constant swish of its tail offers no protection. For parasites, it is a fortress. Warm, dark, protected. Exactly the kind of place blood-feeding ticks and biting flies prefer to hide. For the oxpecker, it is a treasure chest, but ears are only the beginning. The bird explores around the eyes, along the eyelids, beneath the jaw, and deep within the wrinkles of thick skin where insects gather unnoticed. On a rhinoceros, it may patrol cracks in armor-like skin. On a giraffe, it carefully searches the towering neck before hopping toward the shoulders. Even zebras, antelope, and cattle become living hunting grounds. Each species presents a different puzzle. Each body hides food in different places. Over countless generations, oxpeckers have become experts at reading those differences. They don't simply see an animal, they see opportunities mapped across its body. It's a skill that few other birds have ever evolved. But as scientists watch these tiny hunters more closely, they notice something that didn't fit the story. Sometimes, the oxpecker ignored the ticks completely. Instead, it returned to the exact same spot, again and again. Why would a bird walk past an easy meal? The answer would transform a textbook example of cooperation into one of Africa's most fascinating scientific debates. For generations, the oxpecker was celebrated as one of nature's perfect housekeepers. The story seemed almost too elegant. Large mammals offered food. The birds removed parasites. Everyone won. It became one of the most familiar examples of mutualism, a relationship in which both species benefit. But good science begins with a simple question. What if the story isn't that simple? As researchers spent more time observing oxpeckers in the wild, they noticed a pattern that didn't quite fit the traditional explanation. The birds weren't always chasing the largest ticks. Sometimes they walked straight past them. Instead, they returned to places where the skin had already been damaged. A healing scratch, the edge of an old wound, a small cut left behind after two buffalo clashed with their horns. The birds landed, looked, waited, and began pecking. Not at a parasite, at the wound itself. The dry surface slowly broke apart. Tiny drops of fresh blood appeared, and rather than moving on, the oxpecker lowered its head and drank. It was a surprising sight, not because birds feeding on blood are unknown in nature, but because it challenged everything people thought they understood about this partnership. If the bird benefited from an open wound, could reopening that wound delay the animal's recovery? Some scientists believed it could. Others argued that the behavior had been exaggerated and occurred only under specific circumstances. The evidence was far from settled. Even today, researchers continue to debate how common this behavior truly is and how much it affects the animals carrying these persistent companions. That uncertainty is important. Nature is rarely divided into simple categories of good and bad. The oxpecker is not plotting against the buffalo, nor is it acting out of kindness. It is simply responding to opportunity. If it finds a tick, it eats the tick. If a horsefly lands nearby, it catches the fly before it can bite. If an existing wound offers nutrients that can be safely reached, the bird may take advantage of that as well. Its behavior changes with the circumstances, with the season, with the health of its host, and with whatever meal happens to be available at that moment. In other words, the oxpecker isn't following a moral code. It's following millions of years of evolution. Every decision is shaped by the same instinct that drives every wild animal on Earth, to survive another day. And that raises an even bigger question. If these birds sometimes take more than they give, why do so many of Africa's largest mammals continue to tolerate them? Why doesn't a buffalo simply shake them off? Why doesn't a rhinoceros chase them away? The answer lies in something far more valuable than a single meal. Sometimes, the greatest benefit isn't what the bird eats, it's what the bird sees. Imagine spending every hour of your life with your head lowered toward the ground. That's how a buffalo experiences the world. Its massive head is built for grazing, not for scanning the horizon. While its sense of smell and hearing are excellent, spotting danger across the open savanna isn't always easy, especially when tall grass obscures the view. The oxpecker experiences that same landscape from a very different perspective. Perched high on the animal's back, it has an elevated view in every direction. Its head is constantly moving, left, right, forward, behind. It isn't only searching for food anymore, it's watching. Field biologists have repeatedly observed oxpeckers becoming unusually restless before the mammals beneath them react. A bird may suddenly stop feeding, straighten its posture, and release a sharp, piercing call before launching into the air. Moments later, the herd responds. Heads rise, ears turn, bodies tense. Sometimes the cause is another animal moving through the grass. Sometimes it's a human. Sometimes it's a predator silently closing the distance. For the oxpecker, the alarm call is first and foremost an act of self-preservation. Escaping danger a second too late could be fatal. But in protecting itself, the bird may also provide an unexpected warning to the giant carrying it. Whether that warning evolved to benefit both species or simply became a fortunate side effect is still a subject of scientific discussion. What matters is that the buffalo listens. Not because it trusts the bird, but because ignoring sudden signs of danger on the African savanna can be a deadly mistake. This relationship is built on countless small moments like these. A tick removed, a fly captured, a warning call overheard, a safe escape made possible. None of these actions alone explains why the partnership has endured. Together, they begin to paint a far richer picture. The oxpecker is not simply cleaning. It is not simply feeding. It is participating in the daily lives of some of Africa's largest mammals in ways that are subtle, constantly changing, and deeply intertwined with the rhythms of the ecosystem. And nowhere is that complexity more apparent than when different giants enter the story. A buffalo is not a rhinoceros. A rhinoceros is not a giraffe. Each host presents a different challenge. Each one rewards different behaviors. On white rhinos, oxpeckers often spend hours walking across thick, armor-like skin, probing deep cracks where parasites hide beyond the reach of rubbing or rolling. On giraffes, the birds navigate impossibly long necks, balancing with remarkable agility as the animals browse among thorny acacia trees. Even zebras, with their constantly twitching skin and swishing tails, offer opportunities the birds have learned to exploit. The host changes, the strategy changes, but the objective never does. Find food, avoid danger, adapt. That single word may explain the oxpecker better than any scientific label ever could, because the longer researchers have studied this bird, the more they've realized that trying to place it neatly into one category misses the point entirely. The oxpecker doesn't live by human definitions. It lives by whatever works. If there is one lesson the oxpecker teaches us, it's that nature refuses to fit inside human definitions. For decades, biology textbooks describe this relationship with a single word: mutualism. Both species benefit, case closed, but the African savanna has a way of humbling certainty. The more researchers observe these birds across different seasons, different habitats, and different hosts, the more they realize the relationship was constantly shifting. Imagine a buffalo at the end of the dry season. Weeks without rain have left the grass short and dusty. Ticks have multiplied in enormous numbers, gathering around the ears, neck, and shoulders where the animal struggles to reach them. For an oxpecker, it's a feast. Hour after hour, the bird removes parasite after parasite, reducing the burden on its host while gaining enough food to survive. In moments like these, both animals appear to benefit, but seasons change. Heavy rains arrive. Many parasites disappear. Food becomes less predictable. Now the oxpecker faces a different challenge. Its host is cleaner. Its pantry is nearly empty. The bird begins searching longer, looking closer, investigating places it ignored before. Sometimes it finds insects hidden deep within folds of skin. Sometimes it catches flies attracted to the animal's scent. And sometimes it returns to an old wound. The relationship hasn't changed because the bird has become cruel. It has changed because the environment has. Evolution doesn't reward kindness. It rewards flexibility. That may be the oxpecker's greatest adaptation. Not its sharp eyesight, not its curved claws, not even its remarkable ability to cling to animals many hundreds of times its own size. Its greatest adaptation is behavioral flexibility, the ability to change strategy whenever the landscape changes. And on the African savanna, No landscape changes more constantly than a living animal. A buffalo carries different parasites in the wet season than in the dry season. A young rhinoceros presents different opportunities than an old one. A giraffe browsing through thorn trees encounters different insects than a zebra grazing open grasslands. To the oxpecker, every host is a new calculation. Every landing is a decision. Every meal is a balance between effort and reward. That is why scientists increasingly describe this partnership as context-dependent. There is no single answer, no universal rule. Sometimes both species benefit, sometimes only one does. Sometimes the outcome changes from one day to the next, or even from 1 hour to the next. And perhaps that is exactly how evolution intended it. Not as a perfect partnership, but as one that is constantly adjusting to a world that never stands still, which raises one final question. If the oxpecker isn't a hero, and it isn't a villain, then what is it? The answer may reveal something much bigger than the life of a single bird. It may reveal how nature itself really works. As the sun sinks toward the horizon, the African savanna begins to change once again. The heat softens. The wind carries the scent of dry grass across the plains. Shadows stretch farther with every passing minute as herds slowly make their way toward water. Among them, the oxpeckers are still working. From a distance, they're almost impossible to notice. Tiny silhouettes riding on creatures hundreds of times their size. But look closer, and an entirely different world begins to emerge. A buffalo isn't traveling alone. Hidden beneath its coarse hair are ticks searching for blood. Tiny flies circle its face. Mites disappear into the folds of its skin. Microscopic life thrives in places no human eye would ever notice. Every giant carries an invisible community, and the oxpecker has evolved to live inside that hidden world. It doesn't see muscle. It doesn't see horns. It doesn't even see a buffalo. It sees an ecosystem, one that changes every hour, every season, every year. Perhaps that is why this relationship has survived for millions of years. Not because it is perfect, but because neither species demands perfection. The buffalo doesn't expect the bird to solve every problem. The oxpecker doesn't depend on every buffalo. Their partnership survives because it remains flexible. Each takes what the other unintentionally provides. Sometimes that exchange clearly benefits them both. Sometimes the balance shifts. And sometimes the outcome is impossible to measure at all. That uncertainty can feel unsatisfying. Humans naturally want clear answers: friend or enemy, helper or parasite. Nature rarely thinks that way. Evolution has no interest in fairness. It has no concern for intention. It simply favors behaviors that improve the chances of survival. The oxpecker is one of those behaviors brought to life. Not a symbol of cooperation, not a symbol of exploitation, but a reminder that survival is often built on compromise, on adaptation, on taking opportunities when they appear, and leaving when they disappear. As darkness slowly settles over the savanna, the birds finally leave their hosts. One by one, they lift into the evening sky, disappearing toward nearby trees where they will spend the night. Below them, the buffalo continue walking. Tomorrow, the parasites will return. Tomorrow, the search will begin again. And tomorrow, one of Africa's smallest birds will once again climb onto one of its largest animals. Not because they are friends, not because they are enemies, but because millions of years of evolution have quietly taught them that, for another day, living together is simply the best strategy either of them has. So the next time you see a tiny bird perched on the back of a giant mammal, remember, you're not looking at a simple act of cleaning. You're witnessing an ancient negotiation, a relationship rewritten every single day by hunger, survival, and opportunity. Because in the wild, the most extraordinary partnerships are rarely the simplest. They're the ones that refuse to fit the stories we tell about them.